In Blindsided, is there life after love? The narrative arc of Grace serves as a profound meditation on the dismantling of compulsory heterosexuality and the subsequent, terrifyingly beautiful reconstruction of the self through the lens of queer awakening. To understand the emotional weight of this story, one must look past the surface-level tropes of infidelity and divorce and instead focus on the internal landscape of a woman who has systematically erased herself to fit a mold that ultimately shattered. The film begins not with love, but with performance. Grace is introduced as the devoted wife, a role she inhabits with a desperate sort of perfectionism, tending to her husband Derek, referred to as Matt, Aaron in parts of the transcript, with a subservience that borders on self-abnegation. The tragedy of the opening scenes is not merely that her husband is cheating, a banal cruelty that is all too common, but that Grace has outsourced her entire sense of worth to his validation. When he blindsides her with a 2-year affair, his cruelty is specific and gendered. He weaponizes her dependence, mocking her cushy job as a housewife and dismissing her identity as obsolete. This moment of rupture is critical for a queer reading of the text because it represents the failure of the patriarchal promise. Grace followed all the rules, suppressed all her needs, and yet, the safety she was promised was an illusion. This devastation creates a void, a null space where Grace is forced to confront the reality that she has no skills, no job, and, most painfully, no concept of who she is outside of her relation to a man. It is in this fertile ground of absolute loss that the possibility of a new authentic life takes root. Enter Sonny, Carter, who represents not just a romantic interest, but a fundamental paradigm shift in how Grace experiences being perceived. When Grace, urged by her friend Terry Schuyler, stumbles into a job interview she is woefully unqualified for, the dynamic between her and Sonny immediately defies the transactional nature of the corporate world. Sonny's repetition of "I'm so glad you're here" signals an emotional recognition that transcends the resume. For queer women, this scene resonates deeply. It mirrors that specific, often unspoken phenomenon, where two women recognize a shared frequency before a single romantic word is spoken. Sonny does not see a useless housewife or a victim of divorce, she sees Grace. This gaze, the female gaze, is restorative. It does not demand that Grace perform or possess specific technical skills, coding, computer experience. Instead, it offers patience, training, and space. "Let me grab us a couple glasses of wine. We'll figure something out." This interaction challenges the capitalist and patriarchal valuation of women, which usually discards those who are not immediately useful. Sonny's offer to train Grace is a metaphor for the queer experience of learning a new way to love and exist. It is an act of communal care, suggesting that we are not defined by our past capabilities, but by our future potential. As the narrative progresses, the film deftly explores the intersection of professional empowerment and emotional vulnerability. Grace's admission that she has no life is heartbreakingly relatable to many women who have found themselves hollowed out by traditional marriage, but her journey toward Sonny is a journey toward filling that hollow space with her own desires. The return of the ex-husband, Matt, serves as the narrative catalyst that forces Grace to choose between her old patterns of submission and her new, terrifying autonomy. When Matt invades Sonny's space, entitled, aggressive, and presumptuous, Grace's reaction is pivotal. She does not shrink, she demands he leave. This assertion of boundaries is the first true spark of her self-actualization. However, the emotional climax of the film is not the confrontation with the man, but the intimate aftermath between the women. The script implies a moment of physical intimacy, a kiss, that sends Grace into a spiral of panic. "I'm not okay. I'm a mess." This reaction is crucial to an authentic queer analysis. For a woman who has identified as straight her entire life, a late bloomer in the lesbian lexicon, the first moment of queer intimacy is often accompanied by a profound sense of vertigo. It is not just about attraction, it is about the sudden, destabilizing realization that one's entire history has been viewed through the wrong lens. Grace's retreat is not a rejection of Sonny, but a retreat from the overwhelming magnitude of her own truth. She runs because the feelings are too big to fit into the small life she had previously accepted. She retreats to the safety of the known, but the known is no longer habitable. The scene where Grace returns to Sonny's office to explain herself is a masterclass in vulnerability and the shedding of shame. Her apology, I'm sorry," is a reflex of the conditioned woman who believes her emotions are a burden, but her confession is an act of radical bravery. When she says, "I've never even thought about it until you kissed me," she gives voice to a specifically lesbian experience. The realization that heterosexuality was not an innate desire, but a lack of imagination forced upon her by society. She describes the sensation as a rush throughout my entire body, a stark contrast to the numbness of her marriage. This rush is the somatic evidence of authenticity. It is the body knowing the truth before the mind can catch up. What makes this film resonate so deeply with LGBTQ+ audiences is its refusal to center the tragedy of the closet. Instead, it centers the terror and euphoria of the doorway. Grace is standing on the threshold. Her fear is palpable. She worries she is old-fashioned or close-minded. But Sunny's response is one of gentle validation. Sunny does not pressure Grace. She allows Grace to set the pace. "I'm not really sure what you want me to say," which creates the emotional safety necessary for Grace to step forward. This dynamic challenges the predatory stereotypes often assigned to queer women in media. Sunny is not converting Grace. Sunny is simply holding a mirror up so Grace can see herself clearly for the first time. The intimacy here is built on a foundation of communication and consent, starkly contrasting the deceit and betrayal of Grace's marriage. The film posits that life after love, heteronormative love, is not death, but rebirth. It suggests that the heartbreak of the divorce was actually a liberation, breaking the container that kept Grace small. For the audience, particularly queer women, seeing Grace navigate the clumsiness of this new awakening is validating. It acknowledges that coming out later in life is messy, confusing, and fraught with the fear of incompetence. Grace feels unqualified for the job and for the relationship alike, but it also insists that it is never too late to begin. The connection between Grace and Sunny mirrors the real-world pressures on queer women to justify their existence. Grace feels she needs to explain why she kissed back, why she ran, why she is back. But in the quiet acceptance of the final scenes, the film offers a sanctuary. It tells us that we do not need to have the resume for love. We do not need to have known we are queer since childhood to be valid now. The sexual awakening promised in the synopsis is revealed to be an emotional awakening, a reintegration of the heart and the mind. Grace discovers that she is not a stoic creature meant to hide her emotions, but a vibrant, feeling human being who deserves to be consumed by a rush rather than consumed by duty. The film challenges society's discomfort with women loving women by showing how natural, how healing, and how inevitable it feels once the barriers of compulsion are removed. It creates a visual and narrative space where two women can exist for each other, not as a spectacle for men, but as partners in the frightening, wonderful work of being alive. Ultimately, Blindsided argues that while the destruction of a traditional life is painful, the blind side can be a gift. A sudden, jarring turn that points the way home toward a love that does not require the erasure of the self, but rather its glorious, terrified, and absolute celebration. The future they toast to is not just a timeline, it is a promise of visibility.
I've never been with anyone else, let alone a woman. I've never even thought about it until you kissed me. Maybe it's old-fashioned or close-minded, I don't know, but ever since then, I can't stop thinking about you.
I'm flattered, but I'm not really sure what you want me to say.
Say anything.
Are you sure this is what you want?
When we met, there was something there. I felt it. I didn't know what that feeling was until you kissed me. And I felt a rush throughout my entire body. I don't have any experience. I don't have anything to compare it to, but I know I want to feel it again.